Right, so I already tested it. I can record in here with the air on, so I don't have to, die of heat stroke while trying to talk to y'all. That's a plus. What's up? It's been about, I want to say a little over a year since I've recorded any type of videos for, YouTube or anything like that. I just recently posted, like a little over 2 weeks ago, a video that I recorded back in like last June, and I just sat with the video forever, and I started to fall into the same bad pattern of like, like, I forget if I read it somewhere or I heard it, but I remember seeing, no, it was in The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I actually haven't gotten a chance to finish that book, for the same reason why I almost stopped trying to upload anything. Getting in my own way, more or less. But in that book, she said most celebrities or artists that you end up seeing, it's usually audacity that puts people on the map, nothing else. It's not a level of competence, it's not a level of, skill or talent. It's almost always audacity. I feel like a lot of creative people, a lot of genuinely special people go unrecognized because they lack audacity. And it gets frustrating because then you watch people, in a position that you would like to be in, and even if you don't consider yourself to be an envious person, of course you're gonna look and be like, it's not that I don't want them to have it, but it's just, I can tell they don't have the love for it the same way I do. You know what I mean? And that can be frustrating, but that can also be a dangerous, fine line to walk, especially for too long, because if it's not inherently bad to think like that, I guess, but at the same time, if you convince yourself that that's okay, you keep raising the bar of what we allow, and then next thing you know, your baseline is just strictly negative thinking. I just saw a beautiful butterfly. I don't usually see orange butterflies around me. I've mainly just been seeing white ones, but I just saw a really beautiful orange one. I just came back from a vacation. Was it 2 days ago? Yeah, 2 days ago. It's Saturday now. I came back right before July was over. I came back on the 30th. And whole reason for the trip, it was very impromptu. I originally was going to meet a family that I had in the Caribbean. And I was originally going to meet them in December. I've been wanting to connect with them for a very long time. My family tree is kind of jacked up, so it's kind of difficult for me to actually pinpoint when I'm learning about my bloodline's lineage and when I'm just learning about my family's lineage. You get what I'm saying? It's the branches are a little intertwined here and there, but nevertheless, this was a side of my family that was strictly connected to my blood, and I was very intrigued to learn where I was coming from, because I don't want to delve too deep into it, because to be honest, I don't really try to focus on race too much. I think it's important to know where you came from in all aspects, you know, racially, culturally, energetically, spiritually. But I don't like to focus on it as much as it seems this country wants us to focus on it. I'll leave that there. But me being a black man in America, like, I feel like I could speak for a lot of people who look like me when I say that knowing about your heritage is kind of difficult, especially if everyone just looks at you and just treats you like, oh yeah, you're black. Like, because genuinely, how would you know unless you actually had some type of connection to someone who could tell you about where you came from? How would you know where you came from if we were shipped over here mad long ago and, you know, kind of made to forget about our history, you know? But I'm not speaking in that to focus on the aspect of, you know, the woes and the trials and tribulations of a black man or a black person in America in general. I'm just speaking on my experience being a black man. But with that being said, you know, to find out like my roots, like I got roots in the Caribbean, I got roots in Panama. I don't really want to speak too specific on like where I was at recently, because I'm very proud of the family that I have there, and I'm proud to be connected to them. But at the same time, I don't need any clout from them, if that makes sense. You know, I just have a genuine love for those people and who they are, especially one of my cousins, the main one that I was supposed to meet in my, you know, on my birthday in December. But he passed on the 17th, and I never got to meet him. So my mother, my cousin, and myself all decided we're gonna book a last-minute trip to go down there and try to meet our family now, you know? And I usually do things impromptu, so it wasn't bothering me. I was loving it. My mom was a little stressed about it. You know, we get out there goes that butterfly again. Gorgeous. But we get out there, and it turns out that another cousin that we had that lives in London, who had a connection to directly introduce us to this side of our family, he got caught up with something and he couldn't make it, you know, to the service. So now we were pretty much just like SOL in the Caribbean, like trying to figure out our way and fumble around to get to directly meet a lot of our family. And we, unfortunately, to make this part long story short, we didn't get to meet too much of our family in person. We got to meet a lot of them through WhatsApp and different things like that. But we ended up extending our family in a weird way, because from the first day we got down there, we ended up clicking with this one guy who was at the bar right next to our hotel. We almost didn't book that hotel. If we never booked that hotel, I don't think I would ever have the same type of love that I have for this country now. Like, I got there on Sunday, and by Monday I was already trying to figure out how to get citizenship. And I mean that with every fiber of my being. I already wanted the dual citizenship for a long time. I think traveling has become a real highlight at this point in the universe. Like, not just in my life. I think if you know, you know. If you're part of the same, you know, frequency that I'm resonating, you know, with, then I'm pretty sure you're gonna be picking up what I'm putting down without saying too much anyway. But I always learn something new about myself when I travel. Even if I'm going to the same place more than once, like back to back even, like I always learn something new about myself. One major thing that I learned about myself, I believe that in America, there's so many things that are considered taboo, especially when it comes to the topic of sex. And because of how taboo a lot of things are in this country, there's a lot of shame around different things. When you actively try not to talk about something or acknowledge something, you make it all about that thing. And you'll know what I'm talking about because people who have shame or insecurities in terms of their sexuality, anything they may like pertaining to sex, how they like to express their sexual energy, like they make everything about sex directly. You get what I'm saying? But someone who is comfortable in their skin and they accept themselves and they love themselves for who they are, they connect the dots. Oftentimes they connect the dots to say, okay, sexual energy is the most powerful energy that we have, and how you do something is how you do everything. So quite literally, how you approach sex and sexual energy, if that is how you create life, that also is how you live your life. You get what I'm saying? And so the ones who are comfortable in their skin and they're comfortable with their sexual orientation, they're comfortable with how they express themselves sexually, or just how they express or transmute their sexual energy, they don't make it all about sex. Oftentimes they don't even approach anything sexually until it's actually right there in their face and it's time for that, because they don't need to prove to themselves that they can do things well. I'm really trying to get used to, I know a lot of YouTubers say that they have to censor themselves a lot, so I'm not really too keen on what I can and cannot say. I don't like to censor myself though, so I think I'm gonna keep approaching things like this, just being conscientious. But once I get to a point where I'm getting a flow with this kind of thing, and I'm starting to get some type of traction, I think I'm going to dial it back and not focus on being so conscientious. Because when I record videos like these, I don't want to really use my brain. I would rather just use my intuition and my emotions. I feel like there's a time and place for one or the other. Anyway, let me tie this back into what I was talking about with the trip. I learned that I've always been a very sexual person. I've always been very, tuned into my sexual energy. And that comes through in everything I do, Like, there's a reason why some of the most creative artists have always been very sexual and been very, androgynous in their beauty and different things like that. You know what I mean? It's something so freeing about just, letting go of barriers and boundaries that other people seem to stress so much. Every single thing that can take energy from you and requires you to put forth conscious thought to put up any kind of boundary or label, that's just a little more energy that you are not putting towards embodying whoever you want to be or whatever frequency you want to, vibrate at. Like, perfect example. I'm not in the same car that I was recording in my last videos. Last 2 videos. But car's right over here. I just recently bought this car. By the grace of God, I feel very blessed that I couldn't even afford it to get this. At one point in time, I didn't think I would be able to. And I'm not a materialistic person, but it's more so about the fact that when I was in this car, I really didn't want to let go of this car. That car was a 2009 Accord. No, it was. She still is. Shout out to Rosie. Love her. But towards the end of me driving this car, there was so much anxiety and dread because my car really wasn't in a good condition. So every time I was driving, I was dreading the fact that I never knew if I was going to break down at some point in time. And because of that, that took a lot of energy that I was putting towards that instead of anything else. You get what I'm saying? Like, so because of that, I wasn't hitting anyone up to chill, you know, because, what I look like having a girl in this car and I don't even know if I could keep her safe. Well, I look like picking up my boy and I don't even know if, like, we can get to the spot we want to get to go and have some fun. Like, what do I look like trying to drive myself somewhere to take myself on a little artist date? Another thing from an artist way. If I don't even know if I could safely make it back home. You get what I'm saying? Every little bit of energy matters. Like, every single little bit. That's why it's important to, like, do certain things at certain times of the day, and why you shouldn't do other things at certain times of the day. Like, you shouldn't go on your phone first thing in the morning, because that's when your battery is at 100 if you rest properly, which is a whole nother topic. I mean, I'm still a work in progress there. I think I started. I'm not even gonna say that. I'm not even gonna put that out there. I started at 100. I'm not even gonna say that. I've been shamed for having very powerful sexual energy. I've been shamed for that pretty much my whole life. But I also live in an area where people I don't know if it's just this area or if it's just like the masses, especially in this country, but like, I don't think people view sex in the same way that I do. Like, I've noticed people either seem to not really care about it or treat it with any respect, or they treat it with almost too much respect, to the point where they give it all the power. Like, me personally, I'm not someone who believes I need to save myself for marriage. I don't believe that. That's not what I am doing. I mean, I couldn't. We've already kind of crossed that bridge. But at the same time, I don't think that it's healthy to just give your energy to just anyone. I think that sex is a connection. I think whatever connection you have with someone, it is going to strengthen that connection. If you two are strangers and you have a one-night stand, anytime y'all ever cross paths again, that energy transfer and, you know, exchange is going to, you know what I'm saying, it's gonna hit the second y'all lock eyes, because y'all always have that moment, as opposed to if you didn't. If you were friends, you have sex, I believe it's gonna, once again, if it's approached in the right way, it's going to bring you two closer in a certain way. And sometimes that complicates things, because it also ends up highlighting, like I said, a lot of the shame that has been ingrained in us in this country around, you know, things like this. And it could get complicated with friendships. That's a real specific one. But in a hypothetical, obviously the connection between two friends is going to be closer if they have sex than as opposed to if they didn't, because you have now experienced another depth, another level of intimacy with this person that you already had a connection towards. And obviously, if you're in a relationship and you had not had sex up until a certain point, and then you do, it will bring you too much closer. 100%. There's a level of intimacy there that has already been developed. I think it's beautiful to approach intimacy without actively thinking about sex. I also think that people don't think about cultivating their own sexual energy within themselves. And I think that just me saying that, like, there's people out there who genuinely don't even know what I mean when I say that. You know, they probably just thinking about the most direct way that it's not what I'm talking about. Like, it's not what I'm talking about. You can't love anyone until you love yourself, or unless you love yourself. You can't exchange sexual energy with someone else if you don't know how to transmute the sexual energy within yourself to not be controlled by it. It's a very powerful energy. And if you are a very sexual person with a lot of sexual energy, the pull that it has when you keep it to yourself, I do not believe you should just retain. I don't believe in that either. Like, but I do think that it's good to at least be conscious of these things, you know what I'm saying? And when you hold on to it, you have to do something with it, because if you don't, the pull that it will have is insane, and it will pull you towards whatever it is you've been conditioned to put that energy towards. If we grew up in a world that has always focused on pornography and, you know, surface level stuff, that it really offers us nothing of substance, that's where we're going to put that energy, because that's what we know to put the energy towards. People holding on to this energy, thinking they're doing something good for themselves, and I'm proud that you have the discipline to do that. But if you don't do something with the energy, it will consume you at some point in time. You can only hold on to it so long. This vessel, like, imagine you took a plastic bag, you just kept filling it with air. At some point, it's gonna explode. You know what I'm saying? Unless you have like another hole, or like, you know, a tube or something. I'm going a little too far with this analogy. The air gotta go somewhere else. Whether you decide to just let it leak or actually divert it to something that you care about is up to you. You know, I'm not gonna say that any decision is right or wrong. What I will say is, it wasn't until I went on this trip that I was able to express myself and not feel shame for embracing the sexual energy that I have, both in direct and indirect ways. You know, like, just in how I was interacting in platonic situations, I can feel it that I'm talking to someone who isn't, you know what I mean? Like, I can feel it, and it feels amazing. It feels so relieving. It feels refreshing. And in turn, I can give that back, because I know that I'm not going to there's not enough time, man. There's not enough time to thoroughly explain what I want without delving into details too much. And I mean, at some point down the road, sure, I will definitely, you know, be a little more forthcoming with details. But at this stage of the game, like I said, I don't want to ever give off the vibe that I'm using my name or anyone else's name for quote-unquote clout or notoriety, because quite frankly, I don't want fame or notoriety. I do believe that it's coming, and I felt that way since I was a kid. But I think it's the fact that I don't want it that may be why I feel it's coming. Maybe people who are obsessed with it are the ones who don't really deserve it. That's also not for me to say. I literally just got back from work. I almost went inside. I did go inside, and then I forgot that I told myself that I was going to record this. 2442. And then I told myself, okay, you told yourself you were gonna record this video. So let's get to it. I've been seeing 333 everywhere. I kind of want to test something with, like, you know, titles on videos and stuff like that. So I think I'm gonna title this 333. Just to see what happens, because I feel like something I've been learning is it's not always about what you're delivering, but more so how you deliver it. And so maybe the packaging could be the difference between whether or not 10 people see it or 100 people see it, or 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, million, whatever. But I kind of want to experiment with that a little bit. I don't really think there's anything else to say. I don't even know if there was like a true point to this. I guess it's mainly focused on feeling comfortable in your skin, understanding that if your body is tense, that is your body quite literally telling you that you need to relax. Illness and disease comes from dis-ease. You know, when you don't feel comfortable in your skin, when you don't feel comfortable in your mind, when you don't feel comfortable in your spirit, you might think that it's just now happening because you're starting to feel it physically, but there is always a delay in the physical. If you feel ill right now, if you're having stomach problems right now, like if you're having migraines and your head is killing you, if your appetite out of nowhere like vanished or multiplied out of nowhere, like in an unhealthy way where you're almost like being bloodless, you know what I mean? Like, these are all ways of your body trying to tell you, hey, you weren't sitting still long enough, you weren't sitting in quiet long enough to hear the whispers that the universe has been trying to give you. So now we're going to try to talk a little louder. And there's this monk that's really popular right now. I forget his name, forgive me, but he said a saying that I've heard before, but I'll give him the credit for it. I'll paraphrase, it's not verbatim. You have a million problems until you're sick. And once you're sick, you only have one problem. You can convince yourself that you can't make it to the gym because you don't have the time. You can convince yourself that you don't have time to stretch and relax your tense muscles that may come from a result of trauma and your fascia holding on to every bit of trauma that you've been through up until now. You may convince yourself that you can't drink enough water because you don't have enough time in the day to afford bathroom breaks. You can do all of these things. What I'm telling you is, if you get sick to the point where you can't even do what you're trying to do right now, I'm telling you, and I'm telling you this out of love, all you will care about is getting better. I had stomach problems for the longest time, man, and it got bad to the point where, like, I would eat something and I would instantly be in so much pain, and I started to notice that, like, it affected my masculinity, it affected, like, it affected so many different things because everything's connected, and, like, I could delve into that in a whole other video as well, but this is already about to reach 30 minutes. Be comfortable with yourself and know that you can never truly know where you're going unless you know where you have come from. We may not all have the luxury of having family that could introduce us to our lineage, or a family that we even want to talk to. Do whatever you can. Yep. think I'm gonna end it there. 3. Oh, actually. Oh no, it left my brain. If you could go on a trip, go on a trip. Don't be materialistic, but know that if you truly embody the frequency, money's always coming back. It's always coming back. 444. Whatever. If it comes back to me, I'm just gonna write it down for the next video and leave it at that. I hope y'all are doing well. And yeah, drink water. Drink water. I like coconut water. I ain't trying to plug nobody, but it's my favorite. Trader Joe's one is good too. I don't know if everybody on here has a Trader Joe's. I don't know where Trader Joe's is, but all right. Adios.